where you really felt like you found your role on this team? Because it felt like the first 2 years you were trying to figure out exactly your place in the W.
Everybody does a little bit, and I think it's having that support system to...
The WNBA is collectively freaking out right now, and it's all because Lexie Hull decided to blow the lid off some bizarre secrets about Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever locker room. Because as we all know, Caitlin Clark, of course, has always been the unbothered queen. She's the type who could be shoved, tripped, or even blindfolded during a game, and still keep her cool, acting like it's all part of the plan. But Lexie Hull,
where you really felt like you found your role on this team, because it felt like the first 2 years you were trying to figure out exactly your place in the W.
Things are so up in the air that it's hard to know exactly where you fit.
She's not here to stay silent. She's loud, she's relentless, and she's done watching her best friend and teammates be targets of nonsense. So she's exposing everything, every instance of bullying, every moment of humiliation, all the crazy antics that somehow managed to stay hidden until now.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some of my DMs that are hidden, and I refuse to read a lot of them because I know people are upset. And so you kind of forget that there's these people behind the scenes until they come out of the woodwork and say I've been following along this whole time.
And as we all know, the Indiana Fever season started off as a total disaster. 1 win, 8 brutal losses for any team that's nightmare territory. But for the Fever loaded with expectations, it felt like a full-blown crisis. The pressure was crushing, and doubts were everywhere you could practically feel. The tension suffocating the locker room, with everyone wondering how a team with so much promise could crumble so fast. Fans and players alike were consumed with one question: could they even bounce back? From this mess, Lexie Hull, now a crucial part of the team's turnaround, didn't hold back. When she talked about those days, the locker room was in shambles. Exhaustion was the norm, both mentally and physically, with players constantly on edge and dangerously close to breaking. Yet even with all the stress, there was this underlying feeling that they were better than what their record showed. It wasn't blind optimism, but a gut-level belief buried under layers of frustration.
After the season, all of our shots, threes going up, fans are out of their seats and expecting it to go in. So that just feels so good to feel the confidence from them.
When Hull spilled what went on behind closed doors, it all made sense. The team was in emotional chaos. Every loss was a gut punch, and players started doubting everything, whether they belonged in the league, if their strategies were a joke, or if their roles even made sense. The tension was so thick that they were hanging on by a thread, with some players wondering if it was even worth it to keep pushing. But here's the shocking part: the Fever never turned on each other, even when it would have been easier to let the frustration tear them apart. They stuck together.
The following and the spotlight is great, and it's a huge deal for the WNBA and women's sports, but at the end of the day, our job is to perform. We've seen just such a growth year after year. So, it's been so fun. The fans in Indiana have been amazing. So just excited to...
They made the impossible choice to trust one another and refused to point fingers. It was sheer stubborn determination that defied all logic. That unity, that refusal to break, set the stage for the turnaround no one saw coming, proving just how far they could push through chaos when they stood together. And after that, the Indiana Fever's journey took a wild turn the moment Caitlin Clark declared for the WNBA draft. That day, the sports world was practically short-circuited. Fans who'd already seen Clark tear it up on the college courts lost their collective minds when the Fever snagged the #1 pick. Suddenly, social media went from barely whispering about the Fever to full-blown Fever pitch Twitter, a frenzy of Clark to the Fever post Instagram overflowing with fan art and celebration. And those preseason ticket sales that were once embarrassing? Yeah, they skyrocketed like they'd been launched out of a cannon by the time Clark actually walked into the Fever's facilities. The team wasn't just getting attention, it was like a blockbuster movie premiere. Draft night on April 10, the 20,123 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse was packed with thousands of fans losing their minds just watching, and Clark gets selected on a screen. Fever pun absolutely intended had never been more real, and the atmosphere was buzzing like someone left a stadium-sized amplifier on full blast.
And realize that the start of the season isn't the biggest deal, it's how we finish and how we get better, and really proud of just the resiliency of the group. Yeah, I think, she sees the game at a bigger scale, obviously with the platform that she's created for herself, and then that's transitioned to the game.
But let's get one thing straight: Clark's impact was more than her insane three-point range. and game-dominating skills. Sure, she was already a human highlight reel, but the real magic was the energy she brought to the team. Lexie Hull couldn't stop talking about the seismic shift that happened when Clark arrived. Hull remembered how Clark strolled into her first practice, and it was like someone had plugged the entire team into a generator. Suddenly, everyone was more alive, and it wasn't just her talent. It was her humor, the kind that had everyone laughing in minutes. No forced jokes, just effortless, genuine humor. Clark could somehow make a room full of stressed-out athletes feel like they were at a comedy club instead of bracing for drills. Yet Clark was dead serious about winning. Her competitiveness was legendary, and it didn't take long for the whole team to catch on. Hull described how Clark's insane will to win was contagious, spreading through the team like wildfire. Players who were dragging their feet and feeling demoralized suddenly found themselves fired up. Practice wasn't a chore anymore. It was a battlefield, and Clark made sure everyone was ready to fight. Her energy didn't just uplift, it transformed. Clark's presence wasn't just about flashy plays, she was pushing the fever to a level they didn't even know they had. Then came the moments that proved Clark was more than just a basketball savant. One day, during a brutal practice, Coach Christ Sides had cranked up the volume to simulate crowd noise. It was deafening, and most players were just dealing with it, except for Clark. Without missing a beat, she yelled out, "Can someone turn it off? It's giving me a migraine." The room went dead silent. Nobody talked to Coach Sides like that. Hull described the collective breath everyone held, waiting for some kind of explosive reaction. But when Clark repeated herself, the whole team burst into laughter. And just like that, the tension dissolved. It was absurd, it was unexpected, and it instantly became a legend in the Fever's history. And meanwhile, if we talk about Lexie Hull's transformation with the Indiana Fever, is one of those stories you just can't ignore. It's like watching a movie where the underdog finally gets her big break, and it was about time. When Hull first entered the WNBA, she was practically invisible on the court. 2 seasons of riding the bench, averaging a pitiful 12.2 minutes per game, and her shooting percentage a depressing 37%. It's the kind of stat line that makes even the most loyal fans start wondering if she'd be better off as a motivational speaker rather than a player. And sure, she'd been a college star at Stanford, with back-to-back NCAA titles in 2021 and 2022, but the transition to pro ball hit her like a freight train. It was all struggle, no glory, but then out of nowhere, something shifted, and Hull herself described it as feeling like she was in a dream. She never wanted to wake up from it. Wasn't just strategy, it was genuine belief. And when someone like Clark, a bona fide superstar, trusts you to deliver, you start playing like you actually can. Suddenly, Hull was draining shots and playing with a level of confidence that made everyone wonder if this was the same player they'd almost written off. Fans who didn't even know her name before were now chanting it. Teammates were stunned, watching Hull light up the court like she'd always belonged there. And then there's Clark's famous competitive fight fire, which is borderline terrifying. Hull would joke about how Clark couldn't even handle losing a scrimmage. Practices that used to feel like routine warm-ups turned into gladiator-style battles. Clark pushed herself and everyone around her, and before long her obsession with winning became infectious. Players were diving for loose balls like their lives depended on it, clawing for rebounds as if they were in the finals. The entire team had no choice but to level up. Every practice felt like a high-stakes showdown, and that relentless energy started paying off on game days. This unique blend of drive and humor made Clark a game-changer in the Fever's locker room. Hull often talked about how every practice felt like a championship game. With Clark around, the drills were intense and the scrimmages were more heated than ever. But there was this strange joy in that air. Clark made every moment count while making sure everyone was having fun too. That dual energy was crucial, lifting the team spirit and making the grind feel worth it. Clark's influence was like a ripple effect, transforming the entire culture of the team. But ne'er was it more evident than in Hull's incredible rise. Hull's resurgence wasn't just about her hard work. It was proof of what can happen when a player's confidence is set free. Clark's faith turned Hull into the player everyone believed she could be. It's a testament to the power of support and a reminder of just how game-changing genuine belief can be.